One of the first steps you can take in optimizing your blog for faster and better usage is to reduce the amount of background processes that are going on behind the scenes of your blog. And one of the things that's going on in the background of whenever you're trying to add a post is how many times the autosave function is going to be used and adding the current snapshot of whatever post you're working on to be saved into the database in case you ever lose changes or something happens where you have to go back to your post. Well, for the most part, most people don't use this very often, and it's a rare feature, but they still want to have the option available. What you can do is you can adjust the time of how frequently it will auto-save. And what you can do is you can add a simple single line of code into your WP config file that's located in the root of your blog. Just open it up in a simple text editor, any simple one will do, and you add one simple line of code. And it's called define, and it's the autosave interval, and then you put a number there, and that number is in seconds. So what you do is, let's say what I've defined it as is I've defined it for every 5 minutes. And what that does is that will reduce the load of how many times it's going to try and autosave my posts. And so that makes things a little bit more efficient whenever I'm trying to post things. In the previous video, we talked about the autosave interval, which is basically how many times it's automatically going to save something to keep a copy of your posts as you're writing them in case that you lose the information or need to go back to a previous version of something. Well, after a while, what this does is this needlessly bloats your database and slows it down with a bunch of old posts that you're never going to use again. So what I do is I actually disable this feature. What you do is you add one simple line of code to your WP config file, just like before, and you simply paste it, and that's WP post revisions false. This will disable the feature of auto-saving your posts as you're writing them. This will keep you from bloating up your database over time. If you do, however, want to keep this feature, but you just don't want to keep it needlessly bloated, but you would like to save a couple of copies, what you can do is you can limit the number of post revisions a single blog post will take. And what you do is you simply paste in the WP post revisions and then the number that you want it to save. So instead of saving an unlimited amount, you can limit the amount that it saves. You can set it to whatever number you feel that is necessary depending on how many times you revise a post. And that way, you can still keep the feature but not needlessly bloat your database. Another item that bulks up and slows down your WordPress over time is the addition of the new trash feature for post pages and other such items. Instead of deleting them permanently out of your database and off of your web server, it will instead put it in a trash area that will sit there and allow you to rethink whether or not you wanted to delete it. What you can do is after a while, this thing will automatically delete after 30 days, but if you go through a lot of images and you go through a lot of comments and other things along those lines, that stuff can accumulate pretty quickly. So what you can do is if you want to, you can completely disable the trash feature by setting the empty trash days to 0 inside of your config file. If you want to, you can set it to a lower or higher amount depending on what your personal preferences are. But to disable it completely, you just set it to 0. Over time, through regular use of your blog and your database that supports your blog, your database will use little snippets and files called overhead in order to make sure that it runs properly. Over time, these little snippets called overhead will accumulate, bloat, and slow down your blog and your database. You can optimize and repair your database to delete this overhead, but it's kind of a process to do. WordPress automatically does this for you, but by default the feature is not enabled. So what you have to do is simply open your config file and do a define of WP allow repair and set this to true. This way, this will automatically allow WordPress to repair and optimize your table without you even being logged in. It's a great feature, but it's not enabled by default. So enable the feature and it will do everything for you. Keep your WordPress database running smooth and quick. Another thing you can do to speed up and optimize your blog is enable caching for your blog. What caching is it's a saving of a local copy of a file onto your computer for faster access later if you're a return visitor to a blog. By default, WordPress does not use caching, but you can enable the caching option, and it's an advanced caching option, if by going to the WP config file and putting in the line WP cache true. What that does is it allows for the advanced caching to be enabled inside of your blog's files. There's also a plugin available called WP Supercache, which is very popular and a lot of people use for the front-end files and the front-end posts of your blog for faster access for new users later. Another thing you can do to optimize your blog is to reduce the amount and the size of your JavaScript and CSS files that are used throughout your blog, plugins, and theme on your website. You can install a free plugin that's available on the WordPress plugins directory called WP Minify. Just do a search for WP Minify and install it as normal, and then click the Activate button. After it's activated, it'll work right out of the box, but there is a settings page that you can go to that will allow you to do some more advanced configuration if you are an advanced user. But by default, it will automatically crunch and minify and reduce the amount of files that are sent to your users as they explore through your blog.